No one noticed her. Not really. Not when she entered the mansion every morning before dawn, slipping in through the side gate like a shadow. Not when she mopped the marble floors, polished crystal chandeliers, or folded the freshly pressed linens with the precision of someone who knew her worth, even when the world refused to see it. Ana Lucia Morales had become invisible by necessity. She couldn't afford attention, not in a world that judged by income, accent, or the kind of shoes you wore on polished floors. She was 26, Colombian-American, a scholarship dropout, a caregiver for her grandmother, and at present, a housekeeper for the most impossible man in Manhattan. Damon Whitmore, CEO, billionaire, ice sculpted into human form. They said he ran his company like a war, that he'd fired a CFO for sneezing in a meeting, that his employees whispered when he walked by as if silence might protect them. And in his house, it was no different. He didn't speak to the staff unless it was to issue orders. He didn't thank them. He didn't smile. He barely acknowledged their existence. Ana had worked in the Whitmore estate for 8 months. He had never looked her in the eye. Until one morning, everything changed. It started with a vase, a delicate glass piece perched on a narrow ledge in the hallway. Ana had passed it 100 times, but that day, the vacuum cord snagged. She turned too fast and it crashed to the floor. Shards exploded everywhere. Her breath caught. She dropped to her knees, heart racing, hands trembling as she began collecting the pieces. Her mind raced with worst-case scenarios. Termination charges blacklisted from every other estate in the city. Then a voice behind her. "Leave it." She froze. That voice. Low, cold, precise. "Damien." She turned slowly, expecting fury, expecting disgust. Instead, she saw him standing barefoot in his tailored suit pants, hair slightly tousled, shirt sleeves rolled as if he just emerged from some storm inside himself. "I'll clean it up," she said quickly. But he shook his head. "No, you'll cut yourself." His voice wasn't kind, but it wasn't cruel either. He knelt. To her shock, he knelt beside her and picked up a shard. "You're bleeding," he muttered, nodding at her finger. She hadn't noticed. He rose, left the room, came back with a small first aid kit. He didn't speak as he cleaned the wound and wrapped it with care that felt strangely intimate. When he finished, he finally looked at her. Really looked. Brown eyes met silver blue, and for the first time in 8 months, Ana felt seen. He didn't apologize. Of course not. Damon Whitmore didn't do apologies. But that day he passed her in the hallway and gave a single nod. The next day he remembered her name. The day after that he asked how her grandmother was doing, and Ana, who had mastered the art of disappearing, was suddenly under a microscope. The staff began to whisper. They noticed the way Damien paused when Ana entered a room, the way his tone shifted, less sharp, more thoughtful, the way he lingered near the kitchen when she was there as if proximity alone gave him answers to questions he didn't know how to ask. But Ana didn't play into the fantasy. She knew the rules. Men like Damien didn't fall for maids, not in real life, not unless they wanted something. Then came the night of the gala, the Whitmore Foundation's annual masquerade. Every year the mansion filled, with glittering guests and hollow conversation. Ana and the other staff were told to stay invisible as always, unless summoned. She stayed in the kitchen, helping serve champagne until she was sent upstairs to grab extra linens. On her way down, she paused. The ballroom was glowing. She stepped just close enough to watch, hidden behind the velvet curtain at the edge of the balcony. And that's when Damien saw her mask off, collar loosened, a drink in his hand, untouched. He looked up right at her. Their eyes locked and something passed between them. Not hunger, not attraction. Something deeper. Recognition. She turned to leave. But his voice stopped her. Stay. No one had ever used that word on her before, not like that. She stayed, And when the gala ended hours later, she found herself in the library standing across from Damiana's. He poured her tea with trembling hands. "I've been watching you," he confessed. Anna raised an eyebrow. "I noticed. You're not like the others. I clean. Your house, you fix it." He said, "You bring life into it." She didn't know what to say, so he said it for her. "I don't want you to be invisible anymore." But the more he saw her, the more the world saw her too. And someone else in the house, a rival, jealous, bitter, wasn't happy because secrets lived in the Whitmore estate. Secrets that could ruin lives. And someone had just decided to make Anna Luciadis appear again for good. After Thegala, everything changed. Damien Whitmore didn't become soft overnight. His edges were still sharp, his gaze still calculated. But now, when Anna entered a room, he noticed. When she spoke, he listened. When she was quiet, he watched her in a way that unsettled her, because it wasn't lust or possession. It was curiosity and something deeper, something fragile. She tried to ignore it. She still arrived before dawn. Still swept the marble floors, scrubbed the baseboards, and folded sheets like her job depended on precision, which it did. But the silence had shifted, and the other staff noticed, especially Clarice, Damien's longtime assistant. Cool, composed, and ruthless in her loyalty to him and her disdain for anyone who threatened that order. Anna had barely exchanged more than polite greetings with her. But since the gala, Clarice had started watching, measuring, smiling without warmth. And one afternoon she cornered Anna in the corridor. "You're playing a dangerous game," she said, voice smooth. Anna raised a brow. "Excuse me," Clarice stepped closer. "Don't insult us both. Whatever this is, whatever he thinks he feels, it won't end well for you." "I'm not playing anything," Anna said, firm but calm. Clarice tilted her head. "That's the problem. You think you're innocent." Then she walked away. Anna told herself she didn't care, that it didn't matter, that her heart hadn't started beating faster every time Damien entered the room. But that night, she dreamed of him. Not as the cold employer who ruled his estate from a tower of silence, but as the man who bandaged her finger and poured her tea with shaking hands. A few days later, everything unraveled. It started with a missing necklace. One of Damien's guests, a socialite from London, had left her suite with panic in her eyes. It was on the dresser last night. Now it's gone. Staff were summoned. The room was searched, and then under the bed in Asmal cloth pouch, the necklace inside Anna's cleaning cart. She stared at it frozen. "I didn't," she began, but Clarice cut her off. "Someone must have mistaken the pouch for laundry," she said to the guest, her voice full of false sympathy. "But we'll investigate thoroughly." Of course, the implication was clear. The guest left appeased, but the damage had been done. That evening, Anna was summoned to Damien's study. Her palms were sweating. She stepped inside, spine straight, chin high, even as fear chewed through her ribs. He stood by the fireplace, back to her. "I didn't take it," she said before he could speak. Silence. Then he turned. "I know." The words stunned her. She blinked. "You believe me?" He nodded and then unexpectedly walked toward her. "You've been here for almost a year. Not once late. Not once careless. And I've never once seen you look at anything in this house like it belonged to you." She exhaled, her eyes stinging. "Thank you. I trust you," he said. Then, more quietly, "I see you." She should have left it there, should have smiled, thanked him, and gone back to folding linens. But something in her cracked, because she hadn't heard those words, "I see you," in years. She looked up, met his eyes, and whispered, "Then don't stop." They didn't kiss. Not yet. But the space between them was electric, and the next day, when Damien came into the kitchen as she prepared Leo's lunch, a duty she'd taken on temporarily while the chef was away. He brushed his fingers against hers when taking the tray and didn't pull away. Later that week, Anna received an envelope. No return address inside a photo. Grainy zoomed in, her and Damien on the balcony during the gala. He's looking at her like she's the only person in the world on the back in thick black marker. You don't belong here. Her hands trembled, but she didn't cry. She just folded the photo, slipped it into her pocket, and went to work. That evening, she found Clarice in the wine cellar alone. Anna stepped in, voice steady. "If you have something to say, say it to me." Clarice didn't flinch. She turned slow and measured. "You should be careful," she said. "You think you're in a fairy tale, but you're not. He's not a prince, and you're not Cinderella." "No," Anna said. "I'm not. I'm the maid who earned her place here, and I won't apologize for that." Clarice's eyes narrowed. "You don't know what you've stepped into." And with that, she walked away. That night, Damien came to the servants' quarters. It was late. Anna opened her door surprised. He looked tired. "Ra, I need air," he said. "Come with me." She hesitated, then nodded. They walked insolence down the garden path, the city lights distant and soft. Finally, he stopped, turned to her. "I never wanted this," he said, "to feel anything again." "Why did you?" "Because you were quiet, and then you weren't. And I realized I'd been listening for you." Anna's chest ached. "I'm scared," she admitted. "So am I." And this time he kissed her soft, unhurried, like he was afraid she'd vanish. She didn't. But behind one of the windows, a flash went off. A camera, a hand, a threat. And in the morning, the photo would no longer be in Anna's pocket. It would be on every tabloid in the city, and the world would know. The maid had the billionaire's heart. The storm hit at dawn. Not the kind that came with rain, but the one born off-flashing cameras, cruel headlines, and manufactured outrage. It started with a single photo. Grainy, taken through a window, Bhutan mistakable. Damien Whitmore, Manhattan's coldest billionaire, kissing a maid in the garden. By noon, it was on every tabloid site. By 2, the mainstream media had picked it up. By 3, Anna's name was trending on social media, not for praise, but ridicule. Whitmore affair, that frogs to ruthless, made for his bed. The comments were brutal. Strangers questioned her motives, her morals, her past. Someone found an old photo of her in her community college days. Another dug up her scholarship withdrawal. Yet another fabricated a story about her climbing the ladder by climbing into bed. The world didn't care that she worked hard. They only saw the headline. The maid and the billionaire. Damon's lawyers moved fast. So did his PR team, but the damage had already been done. Inside the mansion, the staff avoided her. Even Margot, who'd always been kind, looked at her with pity. Now, no one said it out loud. They didn't need to. She was a scandal, a liability, a heart beating in the wrong place. She packed her bags that evening, small suitcase, 2 dresses, her grandmother's locket. That was all. She left her uniform folded on the bed, and she didn't tell Damien because she didn't want to see his face when he realized this had all been a mistake. But he found her anyway at the staff gate. Rain pouring, suitcase in her hand. She turned when he called her name. "Anna, I can't stay." "Yes, you can." "No," she said. "You saw the headlines. You saw what they're saying. I don't care. They'll come after you next. Your company, your reputation. You've worked your whole life, and I'd burn it all to the ground before I let them take you from me." She froze. His voice broke. "I was nothing before you. Just noise and numbers. You made me feel again." "I'm not strong enough for this," she whispered. "You're the strongest person I've ever met." She shook her head, tears mixing with rain. "I don't belong in your world, then I'll leave it," he said. "We'll make our own." She looked at him and for the first time truly believed him. But behind them, a car pulled up fast. A figure stepped out. Clarice. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She simply walked up, umbrella in hand, her gaze still. "Do you even know what you're doing?" she asked Daman. "Yes," he replied. "You think this ends with love, with redemption? You'll lose everything. Board members are already threatening topple out. Investors want statements. Your father's legacy will be nothing." Damien didn't flinch. "Never asked for your approval." "You should have," she snapped, "because I was the one holding this empire together while you grieved in silence." Anna stepped forward, voice calm but fierce. "You leaked the photos." Clarice blinked. "Excuse me, you took the picture. You planted the necklace. You sent me the threat? You have no proof." Damien spoke next. "We do now." He held up his phone. "I had the security team scan the server logs, trace the IP address that uploaded the photo. And guess what, Clarice?" He didn't need to say it. She turned. "White, you were always careful," he added. "But not careful enough." Clarice said nothing, only turned and walked back to her car insolence. The next day, Damien held a press conference. Not to apologize, but to set the record straight. He stood behind the podium, Anna, at his side, and told the world, "She is not a scandal. She is not Astery. She is the woman I love. And if anyone has a problem with that, they can take it up with someone who cares." The silence in the room was electric. And then applause. Not from all, but from enough. In the days that followed, something beautiful happened. The rage faded, the noise quieted, and the world moved on, as it always does. But Damien and Anna did not. They moved forward. He gave her her job back. She declined. He offered her Appent House. She declined, so he gave her something else, a key to the house to his heart. And the title that scared her most. "Not maid," he whispered one night. "Not scandal partner." She kissed him like she believed it. But beneath the surface, something still lingered. A contract signed by Clarice months before with someone else's name on it. A deal made in secret, and a clause that could cost Damien everything because Clarice hadn't worked alone and someone else was still watching. The quiet didn't last long. Just when Damien and Anna began to believe they had outrun the storm, it returned, this time not as a tabloid whisper, but a legal threat. It came in the form of a thick envelope delivered by courier. Inside, a copy of a contract bearing Claricia's signature and Whitmore Enterprises' former acquisition rival, Marcus Vale. The contract was dated months before the scandal, and it detailed something far more sinister than gossip. It was a plan to oust Damien, a quiet coup. Marcus would manipulate the board. Clarice would stir internal dissent, and together they'd paint Damien as emotionally compromised and unfit to lead. And now, with their relationship between Damien and Anna made public, they had everything they needed to execute it. Damien read every word in silence, then again. Then he stood and left the room without a word. Anna followed. "Tell me what you're thinking." He didn't look at her. "If I fight this," he said, voice hard, "we both become the story again. If I step down, they win. Either way, you pay for it." "I'm not afraid of them," she said. "I am." He turned to her then, raw, unmasked. "Not for me, for you." That night, she sat alone in the library. She hadn't slept, couldn't. The house was quiet, too quiet, like it was holding its breath again. She remembered when I choose to feel like a palace. Now it felt like a battlefield, and the man she loved was walking toward the line of fire alone. She couldn't let that happen. The next morning, Anna met with Jasper Cole, a former board member who'd resigned in protest months ago, back when Clarice first started moving pieces behind the scenes. He met her in a small cafe in Brooklyn. "You're brave for showing up," he said, eyeing. the door, or reckless. I need the truth, she said. How deep does this go? Jasper hesitated, then handed her a flash drive. Everything you need, emails, minutes, proof. Clarice and Marcus set this in motion, but it won't be enough unless he's willing to fight. He will be, Anna said. Are you? She looked him in the eye. I already am. Back at the estate, Damien stood on the terrace, staring at the skyline like it held answers. Anna found him there. She held up the flash drive. Fight with me, she said. He stared at it. Then Arthur, for the first time in a long time, he smiled. The press conference was called for noon. Anna stood beside Damien again, but this time he didn't speak first. She did. To a stunned crowd of reporters, she revealed the scheme, the emails, the backroom deals, the threats. She didn't cry, didn't flinch. She told the truth clear and powerful. And when Damien stepped up beside her, he didn't defend her. He stood behind her, supported her, and let her take back her own name. By the end of the week, Marcus Vale's company was under federal investigation. Clarice had disappeared, resigned. Reputation in ruins, and Damien, he remained CEO not because of control, but because of character. The board, watching how he could integrity over image, voted unanimously to retain him. For the first time in years, he had peace and power. At the same time, Anna didn't move back into the staff quarters. She didn't need to. Damien asked her to stay. She agreed, but on one condition. No hiding, she said. No shame, no pretending. I'm less than what I am. He took her hand. I've never seen you as anything less than everything. One evening, as they walked through the garden, Anna paused under the archway where he had first kissed her. He turned to her. What are you thinking? Hesked. She smiled. That maybe Cinderella didn't need the ball after all, just someone who saw her when noone else did. He stepped closer. And what about the prince? He needed saving, too. They kissed, beneath the fading sunlight, a slow, certain kiss, but neither of them knew. A final letter was coming, and it wouldn't target Damien. It would target her because someone from Anna's past, someone she thought was long gone, was about to surface, with a truth that could destroy everything they'd built. The letter came in a plain white envelope. No return. Address, just her name in shaky pen. Ana Lucia Morales. It was delivered to the state's front gate by a courier who disappeared before anyone could ask questions. She found it tucked into her stack of morning mail between a magazine and a catalog she never subscribed to. Her fingers hesitated as she opened it. Inside were only a few lines. I know who you really are, and so will he. Attached was a photocopy of a juvenile court record. Her name, her signature, a case number, and a charge from 8 years ago, theft. She couldn't breathe. It wasn't what it looked like. She was 17, homeless. Her grandmother was dying, and she'd taken food, medicine, and $20 from a corner store register when the clerk turned his back. It was her first and only mistake, one she confessed to, one she paid for with months of community service and a scar that never fully faded. She thought it was sealed, gone, forgotten, but someone had found it and was now using it to take from her the own thing she'd finally started. To believe she deserved love. She didn't tell Damien, not at first. Instead, she sat with the letter in her hands long into the night, heart pounding, thoughts spiraling. He would forgive her. Of course he would, wouldn't he? But the board, the press, the vultures waiting for another crack in their story. What if this was the one that shattered everything? What if she was? The next day, Damien noticed the shift. You're quiet, he said over breakfast. She smiled too quickly, didn't sleep much. He reached across the table, covering her hand with his. You don't have to carry everything alone. Her fingers tightened around his, but still, she didn't tell him. That afternoon, the threat escalated. Another envelope, this time with a photo of Heron Court, barely 18, sitting beside a public defender with her head down and a printed email draft. Subject line: Anonymous tip. CEO's girlfriend has criminal past. The message was clear: pay or be exposed. Anna couldn't hide anymore. That night, she stood in the library where it had all started, where Damien had first told her she was seen and placed. The letter in his hands. He read it silently, didn't speak. When he finally looked at her, his eyes weren't angry. They were devastated. Not by the past, by her silence. Why didn't you tell me? I was scared of me, of losing this, losing you. He crossed the room in 3 steps, lifted. Her chin. You think I would leave the woman who taught me how to breathe again because she made a mistake trying to survive? Tears spilled down her cheeks. I didn't want to be your shame. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks. Hermith, you are my pride, Anna. The next day, Damien held another press conference. Yes, another. This time, not to defend himself, to defend her. My name is Damien Whitmore, and I'm in love with a woman who survived hell and still had the strength to love me. He paused, voice steady. She made one mistake 8 years ago when she was ackled, when the system failed her. And if anyone thinks that makes her unworthy of standing beside me, then I suggest you take a look at your own sins first. No questions, just truth. And when he walked off the stage, Anna was waiting. The cameras caught their embrace. But for once, the world saw love instead of scandal. The blackmail stopped. Females vanished. Someone was digging. A journalist Anna had helped years ago during a pro bono volunteer project. And soon the truth emerged. The person behind the threats, her cousin, estranged, angry, and deeply in debt. He'd found the record, forged access, and tried to cash in. He was arrested for attempted extortion. And Anna, she was cleared publicly. That night, under the arch where they'd kissed the first time, Damien dropped to one knee. No press, no cameras, just moonlight, a velvet box, and a voice that trembled only once. Ana Lucia Morales, will you marry me? She laughed through tears. Only if I get to do the dishes. He grinned every night. She nodded. Yes. But before the wedding could happen, one last ghost needed Toby faced. Not his. Hers. Because Anna's grandmother, the woman who raised her, who shaped her heart, who taught her Toby kind even when the world wasn't, didn't know. Didn't know about the engagement. Didn't know about the past. Didn't know Anna had found a life far beyond what either of them had ever dreamed. So Anna flew home to a tiny apartment in Queens to the woman who mattered most. And what her grandmother said would change everything. The apartment in Queens hadn't changed. Same creaky floors, same faded blue curtains, the smell of lavender oil and old wood. For Anna, it felt like stepping back into a version of herself she'd almost forgotten. Scared, uncertain, but still holding on. Her grandmother, L.S.E. Morales, opened, the door in a shawl and slippers, eyes sharp as ever despite her fading sight. Anna, she whispered, pulling her in, I've been dreaming about you. They sat in the small kitchen, warm tea between them, silence stretching like a bridge over everything. Lefton said, I came to tell you something, Anna said. LSE raised a brow. You're in love. Anna blinked. How? I may be old, Mija, but I'm not blind. Your voice sounds different, softer, braver. Anna smiled. I'm getting married. El's eyes filled, then softly to the man with the broken heart. Anna looked down. You remember? You wrote about him. Said he made you invisible and angry. A pause. He must have changed. He did. Did you change too? Anna looked up, her eyes shining. I let myself be seen. LSE nodded. Then he's a lucky man. The wedding was held in the garden, not a palace ballroom. Not a cathedral, just flowers, lanterns, music, and love. Margot cried. Jasper Cole gave a toast. Leo, the little boy from the kitchen staff who Anna had once helped with math homework, was now a full-time scholarship student at one of Damien's Mai's. He carried the rings like they were treasure. Damien stood at the altar in a deep navy suit, eyes locked on Anna as she walked toward him in a gown she never thought she'd wear. Her steps were steady, her heart full. He whispered, "You look like the future." She smiled. "You feel like home?" Their vows weren't long, but they were honest. "I once ruled a kingdom of glass," Damien said, "until you shattered it and showed me the stars." Anna's voice trembled. "It thought I had to disappear to survive, but you found me and gave me permission to exist." And then they kissed, and the world didn't end. It began. In the months that followed, they lived gently. Anna joined the Whitmore Foundation and built a program for underprivileged women, offering training, education, and housing. Damien took a step back from business to focus on the kind of legacy no boardroom could build. They traveled. They laughed. They read under blankets during rainstorms and cooked at midnight when sleep wouldn't come. They argued, of course, but even the arguments were full of grace because they were no longer fighting for love. They were fighting with it. One evening, long after the cameras stopped watching, Anna stood by the fireplace reading a letter from one of her program's first graduates. Tears slipped down her cheek. Damien came up behind her. "Good tears," she nodded. She got into Columbia. Hez smiled, then placed a hand gently on her stomach. They hadn't told anyone yet, not even Luz, but they knew. And that was enough. Later that night, they danced in the garden. No music, no audience, just two people who had once been strangers in the same house. Now building a life that couldn't be shaken by scandal, fear, or history. A life built not on fairy tales, but on truth, on trust, on the quiet kind of love that stays when everything else fades. And somewhere in the dark sky above them, a star flickered, not because they wished on it, but because it saw them at last.